Good morning. Welcome to today's Infor CloudSuite ERP webinar. I'm Wendy Levine, the Marketing Director here at DRI. I'm pleased now to present our introduce our presenter today. Dave Lindeman is a Senior Consultant here at Decision Resources. Dave has 25 years of experience working with ERP and supply chain management solutions and helping clients automate and transform their business operations. Dave, you ready?
Yes, great.
All right,
Thank you, Wendy, and thanks everybody for attending today's webinar. The objective of today's session will be to provide you with an overview of CloudSuite Industrial version 9.01, and we'll take a look first at some user productivity features. We'll take a look at some key performance and analytical features that are system-wide, and then we'll do a lead to shipment kind of process flow through the various application areas. So in CloudSuite offers a lot of different user productivity features, and some of the things that we'll take a look at today include user-defined home pages and dashboards. And this is going to give you the ability to consolidate content onto a user-specific dashboard for efficient access to your CloudSuite information. We'll also look at 360-degree views of key information. That's going to give you quick and easy access to key information related to some of your master data elements like customers, items, vendors, employees, etc. So that's going to give you that quick entry point, kind of a hub and spoke type view of some of your key master data and the related information. Then we'll take a look at Infor's Mingle platform and some of the key capabilities within it. First being user collaboration and information sharing. And this is going to allow you to tie some of your internal user communications to your business activities and processes and data so that, that you're making your users more efficient in the way they communicate electronically. And we'll take a look at context-sensitive access to related information, which is going to allow you to link related information to your business data. So as an example, if I want to see document or drawing information related to an item, I can see that wherever I am in the system via the context viewer. So I could be in the item master and see it. I could also be in a customer order and see that same information because it's context sensitive with the, in that case, the item. We'll take a look at that as well. We'll also look at some of the key performance and analytical features of CloudSuite Industrial. A couple different areas. We'll look at some user-defined KPI and metric dashboards. And we'll also look at Burst, one of Infor's newest business intelligence and analytical tools that's going to give you some dynamic visualization and drill down capabilities in a dashboard style format. And finally, as I mentioned, we'll do a lead to shipment kind of process flow overview. It's going to touch on some of the key areas of the system, including CRM and sales, planning and scheduling. We'll look at some manufacturing execution and also shipping and receiving to kind of give you a flavor of various areas within the CloudSuite industrial system. So with that, let's jump over to the system. And before we dive right into the system, I wanted to just focus on this graphic at the bottom of this screen to kind of acquaint you with the CloudSuite industrial footprint and talk about the breadth that it offers. So it's going to have your common ERP type applications, obviously, engineering and sales and procurement and manufacturing, but in addition to that, CloudSuite offers some kind of specialized applications in areas like configuration management, if you happen to have custom configured product that have rules-based configuration options. It's got an integrated quality management for any of your inbound or in-process quality requirements. Service management, if you have units that are being serviced in the field, have field service requirements in terms of incident tracking, warranty tracking. It's got a very robust service management solution. Human capital management for your payroll and HR needs. And you can see there's others, but the message here is that you're going to have your core ERP applications, but you're also going to have it be covered if your business happens to expand into other areas, and you need those under the same umbrella. So you're not going to have to go outside that CloudSuite Industrial umbrella. All right, so first we're going to jump into some user productivity features. And before we even do that, I wanted to mention the fact that I'm in a standard web browser. So as long as you have access via, whether it's I'm in Chrome, it could be IE or Firefox, or it could be Safari. As long as you have access to the internet, you're going to be able to access your CloudSuite data. Now, you can also use the Windows client as well, which is going to look identical, but that's available. And CloudSuite can be deployed a number of different ways. You're going to have the freedom to choose whether you deploy it in a cloud or software as a service type subscription model. It can be deployed on-premise, or it could be a hybrid of the two where I'm in a hosted type scenario. So you're going to have the flexibility to deploy the solution the way you see fit and what's best for your organization. All right, so let's take a look at the productivity features. First of all, we have what we call user-defined homepages or dashboards. In fact, the page that I'm on right now is a homepage or a user-defined homepage. And each of these boxes that we see here are what CloudSuite terms a widget. And I'm going to just jump over to another homepage because I can maintain multiple homepages for my user sign-on. And in this case, I'm looking at, maybe a sales or customer service type person, and I've got a menu widget that allows me to navigate to my CloudSuite applications. I've got a couple inquiry widgets. I've got my customer interactions widget down here that's allowing me to see communications I've had, and again, it could drill back from there. I've got an item availability, and I've got some metrics I'm displaying. So I've kind of consolidated key pieces of content onto a single homepage. In the middle, I'm seeing some customer follow-up information. So this is more of an alerting type feature of, in this case, I'm seeing past due orders. So I drilled into the customer order lines associated with one of those past due orders, and now I could start getting details on that if I needed to. All right, going back to our home page, these are very easy to create and maintain. So let's take a look at as a user how I might do that. And again, you can assign authority to who you want to be able to do this process. But as a user, I can simply go in and click Edit. And let's say, for example, I want to add a pricing widget to my display. I'm going to go down, I'm going to click on the Add Widget button at the bottom of the screen, and I'm going to search for a pricing widget. So I want to do add a pricing inquiry widget to my display. You'll notice it puts it down at the bottom. Now I want that to appear in the primary panel up above. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my availability widget and I'm going to shrink it down. And you'll see that the pricing widget now moves up to that available spot. Now I could also put it anywhere I want within my home page. So you can kind of drag and drop these around. So you can see it's very easy to do that. I'm going to click Save. And now it's going to refresh and show me my new home page. And just to show you, if I wanted to do, for example, an inquiry on pricing at this point, we'll just inquire on an item, a bracket that I know I have. And there we see my price break quantities. I could have done an availability inquiry or a customer interaction inquiry as well. So what that's doing is it's bringing that functionality right to the forefront so that you don't have to navigate out to a pricing screen or somewhere else if that's a common function that I might perform. Now there's many other home pages that we could look at. Here's an example of an executive overview page where maybe I'm looking at some key values as a controller. I'm looking at maybe sales pipeline information, some cash impact graphs. The ability to add home pages is very easy. As you saw, we could add a home page the same way I revise the other. And in addition, I can go to a page catalog and add predefined. There's several predefined pages that Infor provides as part of the solution. I could add those, and then tweak those to as I see fit. So there's buyer home and controller home, customer service home. So you can add additional home pages as well. The second productivity feature I just wanted to mention was 360-degree views of key information. And what, as I mentioned before, what this is giving you is kind of a hub and spoke concept of starting with a master data element, in this case, customers. And I could search for the customer I want. In this case, we're going to choose coordinate industries. And when I go to the left-hand side of the screen, I'm going to be able to drill into various areas for this customer. So right now, I'm just seeing overview information. I'm seeing some address and credit information, some maybe email information. And if I go to the left-hand side and open up the company accordion box, I can drill to a variety of different areas. So maybe I want to see payment history. So I'm seeing some payment stats, sales paid to date, year to date, sales last year for the customer I happen to be focused on. I could also look at notes or AR information. As I go down further into the CRM area, I may want to see various interactions I've had with this customer. So in this case, I see I've got an email that we've maintained in the interaction, but there's multiple interactions I've had. I could drill to any one of those. If I want to see the details on all my interactions, I can just click View Details at the top, and now I'm seeing all the interactions I've had with this customer and the various types. I've got emails, I've got calls, I've got just general internal communications. So that's given me the ability to see all those interactions I've had. Maybe I want to see leads or opportunities, and we can, again, drill into the details of any of these. So the intent here isn't to show you all these applications. It's to show you that you've got this central focal point that I can then start drilling into additional information. If I wanted to go to a customer order, as an example, and I'll show you something that's you're going to see throughout the system. If I go to this order number and right-click, I can drill through to the details, and you're going to see that feature not just for orders, but for items and for other relevant data in the system throughout the CloudSuite industrial system. When I click on details, it's going to take me right to the details of that specific order. And now maybe I look up, what was ordered, what was shipped, what was returned. I get the information I need, and I come back to my 360. Same with estimates, if I had quotes or estimates. And we'll look at these when we get into CRM and sales as well. So the 360 screens are going to give me the ability to have that central point that I then branch out to. Again, they're going to be available for things like items, vendors, customers, and employees that I may have related information with. All right, so the next area we'll talk about is the Mingle platform that I mentioned up front. And first area we'll look at is Mingle Collaboration. As a user, I'm going to have the ability to view what we call activity feeds based on information that I'm following in the system. So think of this as a social media-like experience within CloudSuite. And I can follow orders, I can follow other users, I can follow returns. Basically, any object I want to follow in the system will feed the activities that we see in the center of the screen. So this is my activity feed. I can also share information with other users. So you can see here my user ID is sysadmin3. I sent a message to Kirk Taylor telling Kirk to review and approve the linked item below. Well, because I sent that from the item screen when I was on it, it creates a drill back link that we're going to be able to drill into. Before I do that, I've also attached a drawing, so we're giving Kirk some additional information. But Kirk's going to see the message that I've sent here exactly as I see it, and you notice he has responded back. But when he gets it, he may click on that drill back link and drill right to our item screen for the item that I sent that share on. Now, if you go up to the upper right-hand side of the screen and we click share, that's where I initially sent that message from. So that's what created that activity feed in both mine and Kirk's activity. That's an example of Mingle Collaboration. And again, that's going to give you that ability to start linking your business data with your internal communications. The second item within Mingle we're going to look at is Mingle context-sensitive information. And what this is going to allow us to do is relate, as I mentioned before, we can relate information to objects in the system, being items, orders, whatever it might be. I'm going to search for all the brackets by using the filtering feature in CloudSuite. So when I can filter on any field in any screen in the system, and I'm saying I want to find everything with a description of brackets in it. I'm clicking my filter button at the top of the screen, and I'm fine. Whoops, I actually hit the wrong button there. Hold on. All right, so I'm going to filter on brackets. And that's pulling up all the brackets I have in my item master, or anything that has the word bracket, I should say, in the item master. If I focus on an item, in this case, the right-hand support bracket, and I go up to the upper right-hand side in the context viewer and open that, you're going to see, not only do I see the postings that we were just talking about up above, okay, my Mingle postings, but you're going to also see related information down here. And this is coming from the Infor document management system, which is integrated with the rest of the CloudSuite system. And I'm seeing various drawing information I have associated with that. Because I'm focused on this bracket, I see drawings associated with that. If I go to another bracket in my item master, and this is our collection of records we filtered on, now I'm seeing another drawing pop up, and that's because of that context sensitivity that I mentioned. So I don't have to be in the item master. I could be in an order that had this item, or I could be in a job that was using that item, and I'm going to be able to see that same information. So it's going to pull that information that is related to that or it's going to allow the user to see that information regardless of the screen that I happen to be on. All right, I want to talk a little bit about some of the analytical features within the system. We mentioned the KPI dashboards, or we saw some of that up front with the home pages we looked at earlier. But I wanted to give you an example of how, there's hundreds of widgets out there, and these are being driven by a feature in the system we call critical numbers in a lot of cases, where I can set goals and alerts for the various values in those. So you can see here my inventory value, I've got a goal, I've got an alert, and I've got my actual. So I'm kind of in the red right now on that. But the metrics dashboards are going to allow me to apply any or all these widgets to my particular dashboard depending on my function. I'll pull in those that are relevant for my specific area. Okay, so that's one method of visualizing information in the system that is key to the organization. Another is through a product called Burst, which is part of the CloudSuite solution, and it's going to present it in a more visualized dashboard type view like we see here. So I'm looking at Burst within CloudSuite Industrial. It doesn't have to be, because it's a web-based solution, a cloud-based. I can access that independent of CloudSuite Industrial if I want to. Now, I can also access non-CloudSuite data with Burst. So it can be, it can come from Dropbox or Salesforce.com or some other system, and I can visualize it along with my CloudSuite data if I see fit. So let's take a look at the Burst dashboard. The upper left-hand side of the screen, I'm seeing some summary information, and this happens to be a sales metrics. And this can be built any way you want. This isn't necessarily a predefined layout. So each of these, what we call dashlets, can be added to the dashboard. And in this case, I'm seeing some general sales, unit shipped, and discount information for all sales or since the beginning of time, but I can start filtering that, as we'll see in a second. I can also see some trending information on that. So I can see what, of the units shipped, what shipped in December versus what shipped in February. You can kind of see that shows me a little bit of a trending graph in the summary box. As I move down, I'm seeing a heat map that, a heat or geo map that shows me sales by state. And as I hover over each of my states, the darker states are the more predominant sales, the lighter states are lesser sales. If I want to expand on any of these boxes to make them larger or dashlets, I can do that as well. And now I'm seeing a full view, and I've got the same hover capability over that information as I saw in the minimized view. Maybe I don't want to see a graph here. I'd rather see that in tabular or table format. I can easily go to my view selector and change that to a table style format, or we can come back to our bar. As I start drilling into data, I'm going to drill into this bar 2017 sales by year. And what we're seeing up here is a filtering as well as all the other dashlets. So now the status bar at the top is telling me I'm only looking at 2017 data. And as I go further down, if I go into Q4, I'm going to see it filter further, and I'm going to see my graphics change according to that. All right, so I can continue to filter. If I ever want to get back to where I started, I can click on Original, and that will revert me back to where I started. On the right-hand side, we see a table of sales by customer. Maybe I want to do some analysis on that. I can also export any of these to PDF or to Excel, but maybe I want to do some analysis in this case. I'll go to Visualizer, which is another feature within Burst. And in this case, maybe I want to sub-break this by region. So I've got little filters at the top. I can click on Break By. And now I'm looking at my regional sales for my customers and my quantities and pricing information. Maybe I want to add a column here to say, show me the percentage of price as a whole. And that it simply added a column and calculated the percentage of price. Again, I could export this to PDF or Excel if I wanted to. So Burst is going to give you that drill around visualization capability of your CloudSuite data. And as we look down further, there's other information that we've added to this dashboard, but you could also have a live web page link here as well, and other graphics as we can see here. So giving you some pretty significant capabilities to analyze information, have that information at your fingertips, and help you make more informed decisions. All right, so the next area we're going to jump into is our lead to shipment flow process. And before I dive into this, we're going to be focused a lot of our attendees are discrete manufacturers today, so we're going to kind of go down the path looking at initially a discrete item, enclosure. However, I did want to mention that CloudSuite is truly a multi-mode manufacturing package. You can also handle your process manufacturing capabilities should you be a process manufacturer. So I just wanted to mention the fact that if you're a discrete manufacturer and also have process requirements, we can handle that. If you're strictly a process manufacturer, we can handle things like formulations and recipes and formula management and all your manufacturing specifications, your batch management and lot and recall and traceability functions. So I wanted to mention that up front so that you're aware that it is truly a multi-mode manufacturing package. All right, so we're going to kind of go through a flow that leads us through CRM and sales, through some planning and scheduling functions, and eventually into our warehousing and shipping functions. So I'm going to start by looking at one of the items that we're going to be focused on initially. And I'm going to go to the item 360 in this case. So I'm going to pull up an item, and in this case, we're looking at our specialty enclosure. Now, if I go to details, it's going to kind of give me a snapshot of some of my item master information, not all inclusive by any means, but just a snapshot of some of the key pieces of information, the description, what the rev level is, the source is, in this case, manufactured. If I want to go to the details of the item master, I can click on view details, and it will drill into the actual item master's details. And now you can see I can get a lot more extensive information. I can start looking at lead time or planning information. I can look at if it was a lot tracked or serial tracked item, whether it's back flushed, and all the common item type information that we might want to see. The other piece of information while I'm in the item 360 I want to look at, because this will come into play when we look at planning later on, is just a snapshot. And again, this isn't the all-inclusive bill. This is just a snapshot of the operations or the routings. So I've got an assembly and inspection operation and my materials associated with those operations. So we're using steel and access door and a hinge. And we'll see how these material requirements show up later in some of our planning overviews. All right, so what I'm going to do is we're going to go to CRM to start, and I'm going to pull up all leads for a specific customer. So I'm starting with a lead. You don't have to. You could start with a prospect. Okay, I'm assuming we knew our customer that we were working with, and all we know at this point is that this customer wants some type of specialty enclosure. But I can start incorporating other information, such as what campaign was the result of, if I want to associate a campaign. You don't have to, but that allows you to do some effectivity analysis on your campaigns. I've got a sales contact. I've got a source. In this case, it was a campaign, but again, that's going to be user defined. You can define your different sources. This happened to be a high quality. And you can see I've got other information related to that lead in this case. So a lead isn't quite an opportunity yet, and that's the next step we're going to take a look at. But what I did want to mention, now this lead I've taken all the way through to I've created an opportunity, which became a quote, which became an order. And as all that activity happens, it's going to get recorded back to each of those steps. So if you look at my opportunities tab down below, you'll see that this lead 125 resulted in opportunity 47, which is an interest in the EN123 enclosure. That then generated quote number 4, which resulted in sales order number 134. And I could also associate this if I used projects with my projects. Now, if I go to opportunities, once it becomes an opportunity, it's going to take on all the information that I had in my lead and some additional information. So if we start down at the bottom, we'll see that I've got an estimated value, in this case, of $3,000. So my opportunity is starting to take on some additional information. I may know the item at this point as well. In this case, it is our EN123 specialty enclosure that we've now defined, and we have pricing information on. So they want 5 of these enclosures. I can have tasks. So I may have a series of tasks I need to go through to process this opportunity, and I can make those mandatory so that this opportunity can't move forward until I have completed my tasks. So in this case, we've got design, quoting, and then maybe some supporting documentation type tasks that we've associated with the opportunity. Again, just like on our lead that we looked at, it's going to record any quoting activity or ordering activity that we've had against this opportunity. All right. So if I go to my quote or estimate button. And as an opportunity is created, this is where the quote would actually get launched from the opportunity. I can see that I've got my quote out there now, and if I click on the General tab, you'll see that it's got that linkage back to the lead and the opportunity. So it's pulling all that information together as we proceed through our the steps of our CRM cycle. All right, and then eventually that quote is going to become an order, and we can see our customer order in this case that was converted from the quote, and we've got order number 134. And if I look at the lines on that order, we're going to see that that was for our enclosure, or our specialty enclosure. All right, 1, 2, 3, and if I go to my general tab, or I'm sorry, if I go to the main tab, I'm going to see the quantity, I'm going to see the price, any discounting information, as well as due date information. So I've gone through the process of managing a lead, creating an opportunity from the lead, creating a quote from the opportunity, and eventually creating an order from the quote. All right, so now we're going to talk about once it becomes an order, and even when it was a quote, we've got some significant capabilities within our planning functions to provide realistic promise dates. And one of those capabilities is called capable to promise. And what that's going to allow you to do is net all your support sources of supply and demand. So I've got purchase orders and supply, I've got inventory, I've got orders that are my demand, I've got potentially forecast, and then I've got capacity or resources in my production area that are giving me various sources of manufacturing labor or machine availability that I can use to produce that. So what the capable to promise is going to allow me to do when I go into an order is it's going to allow me to promise my customer based on real-time analysis of all that information. So let's take a look at a scenario where I've got an interaction with a customer that sent me an email, and they said, in this case, Jane Francis says she'd like to expedite this item from the original date of 5/22 to a date of 5/15 if possible. All right, so right from my 360, maybe I've received this email from Jane. I can reference this sales order, 134, and click on details. And that's going to take me right back to my sales order screen for our sales order 134. And I'm going to drill into the lines for that. And we see that it is currently promised for 5/22. Well, Jane said she wanted that on 5/15. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to change that to 5/15. And I'm going to click on Get CTP. So this is our Get CTP, a real-time capable to promise, checking that 5/15 date. Okay, it says, yes, we can do that 5/15 date. If I click on my plan detail, that's going to show me a visual of all my material requirements and my two operations if we work from the bottom up. And in this case, everything's black, so that's a good thing. We can see that I can promise that on the 15th. So I'm going to start my procurement mid-April, and we're going to complete that by the 15th, safely by the 15th. Now, what if she had requested on May 1st? Change this to May 1st and click Get CTP. Okay, now it says we can't accept May 1st, but we can accept May 4th if Jane would be acceptable to that. So if I go to the plan detail in this scenario, then let's expand this a little bit. That's saying if I start my order today on April 12th, I'm sorry, yes, April 12th, I can promise it on May 4th because I've got a 15-day lead time, you'll see on my enclosure, okay, my door panel has a 15-day lead time that is going to take me out to the middle of April or toward the end of April before I can even start manufacturing that product. So in that case, the best I could do would be May 4th. But she wanted it on the 15th, and so what we'd do is we'd go back and tell Jane through our customer 360 that we could promise it the 15th. And what I would do in that case is I'd go to my interactions. Here's the interaction that Jane sent us. It was an email. I'd reply, and I'd say this type of interaction is an email, and now I could just send Jane the email confirming the 15th date. So that's an example of how you might use the capable to promise capabilities to provide realistic promise dates to your customers and incorporate all those sources of supply, demand, and capacity into the calculation of that. So now we've got actual demand out there, and we're going to go through planning and scheduling. So that's going to create purchase orders and manufacturing job planned orders based on our demand. So if I go into planning, first view I'm seeing is for purchase orders, and the same planner's workbench is relevant for both purchase orders and, as we'll see, jobs. The information I'm seeing here is just for today's orders. So you're seeing everything I need to release on the 12th. Okay. If I want to look at all orders, I could simply click the radio button, and now I'm seeing those purchase orders in this case that I can release it today, but also in the future. Now there's our access door. So we knew we needed, or we knew we had an order for 5 of those. For some reason, it's telling us we need to buy 5 access doors. I'm sorry, we had an order for 5 of the parent item. We need to buy 5 access doors to make that. So if I click on that row and I click planning detail, the planning detail is going to show me exactly why I need to do that. So it says I have none on hand right now. Okay, it's recommending a planned order to satisfy demand from customer order 134. So I would have 5 on hand at that point, but then I'm going to consume that because I've got parent item EN123 that requires that. So that's the parent planned order. And we'll see that parent planned order when we look at the next screen, because if I go up here and I choose jobs, like I said, this is for both purchase material as well as manufactured. And I go to my specialty enclosure and look at my planning detail. We're going to see that, again, I have none on hand right now, but I do have a planned order to manufacture the EN123, which is going to satisfy customer order 134. All right, so it's giving me a nice visual of why I need to release these orders. Now, to release any one of these orders, I'd click on a row, click on generate orders, and that would release that order to a firm state. Okay. And once I have firmed orders out there, I've released them, I'll also have a nice visual display from a scheduling standpoint, because the system's also going to schedule my work. And if I go out and let's just choose the beginning of this next week, and I'll look at all resources. Typically, you're going to look at maybe a line or a consolidated view of a particular cell. But here what we're seeing is, and let me shrink this down just a little bit. So I'm seeing a view of by day, by time, of all my resources and the workload that I've got in my facility right now. So I'm seeing some labor operation or labor resources. I'm seeing some machine-based resources. But here, as I move to the right, I'm seeing what's my workload going to be as I move forward. Now, from this screen, I can also take any one of these individual jobs or work orders, and let's say I wanted to move that from inspection area 1 to inspection area 2, and I want to start it at the beginning of the shift tomorrow, I could just drag that and drop it and reschedule that. Okay, if I decide I don't want to do that, then I can just cancel out. So this is giving me a nice visual view of my schedule once I've released my jobs, and allowing me to do some tweaking of that optimized schedule. Once I've done my planning, I've got my purchase orders, I've got my jobs out in the manufacturing facility. Then we're going to start seeing our load in the shop. So I'm going to go to today. I'm going to start as of today. I'm going to look at a 5-week interval of everything that's at least 50% utilized. Okay, now I could look at all my resource groups. I'm going to choose a single resource group to just see a view of where we're at. So I'm looking at the assembly resource group in this case, and this is giving me a nice view of my weekly on-shift hours. In other words, that's my weekly capacity availability. What I'm loading, and that could be forecast actual load, and I'm seeing a utilization percentage based on that. So if I click on load profile, I'll see that for the next few weeks, I'm pretty much 100% utilized. But then once I get into my May 3rd and May 10th buckets, I do have some forecast and planned load that's less than 100%. So I could potentially add more work to those particular time frames. All right, so and that's just one of several views we'll have, but just a kind of a quick view of resource loading in the shop, and kind of a graphical view of what type of activity we have going forward. All right, we'll talk a little bit about manufacturing execution now that we've got jobs out in the facility. One of the nice features in CloudSuite Industrial is a feature called Factory Track. And this is going to give us mobile shop floor and warehouse capabilities. So the first thing I'll have the capability of doing, and this could be on a tablet or it could be on a kiosk, is simply clocking in, clocking out, managing breaks or lunch activity. In addition to that, I can also manage my material transactions within my job. So I could do a job material issue or a move or a receipt. So for example, if I want to do a material issue, I may pull up the job I'm working on for my work center. I'll choose the operation. I want to issue the SA 5500, and I'm going to choose the location and put in a quantity, and we could go ahead and issue that to that particular job. So you can see that a nice feature in that I can do this mobile on the floor. I could have a tablet at the work center and do that as I process the work without having to record paperwork and pass that back and have that keyed into the system. I've also got work center visibility for labor transactions. So I can do it individually by work order if I want, or I can pull up a job list and transact by job. I can also maintain things like notes and documents. So if I had notes associated with one of the jobs, I could see that on my tablet on the shop floor. Okay, it's similar if I had a document or a drawing associated with that. But if I want to record labor, I could simply click Start Run or Start Setup or Start Machine and start recording labor against those operations in my work center. The other way that we can transact is through a scanning device. So I can do any of those same type of transactions we just saw. There's my material issue or moves or receipts through the scanner, and typically you're going to be barcoding. And I can also do my warehouse transaction. So let's take a look at a purchase receipt as an example. So typically what I'm going to do here is I'm going to be scanning my PO barcode. Click next. And that's going to bring up the items that are currently on that PO. I'll click the first item. We'll choose that, and it's going to say, okay, how many are you receiving? We'll receive 5. Click receive, and now that's going to receive that. And if we wanted to produce a label to barcode that, to store it, we could do that as well. All right. So it shows me my PO is successful, and again, here's where I might print the label to go ahead and put that away. All right, so now we're going to assume the job's been completed. It's moved to the warehouse, and we're getting into the warehousing and shipping operations. One of the nice features in CloudSuite Industrial is I can certainly just have the pick list print as material becomes available, but I've also got a pick workbench that's going to allow me to consolidate picking activity depending on user-defined selection criteria. So for example, maybe I want to look at all my UPS items to pick that are for a specific customer. So I'm going to filter on that. And we see a number of different orders come up that can potentially be picked. And I may want to choose some of those in this case that are ready. So I'm going to go ahead and let's say we wanted these 3 orders to be consolidated. When I generate that, it's going to generate a consolidated pick that's going to allow me to then pick confirm against that specific list. So you can use any of these fields that we're seeing here to filter on the data that you want and then consolidate that information. Now the next step after we pick confirm the goods would be potentially packing if you have packing operations. You can go right from a pick to a ship if you want, but the packing function is going to give us that same capability that we just saw. So I could pull up a pick list, and we'll just choose one that's been picked and have the same type of functionality for packing that I had for picking. So I could consolidate these into a single pack. And if I look at my pack confirmation, let's just choose one that has already been packed. We'll choose 214. Okay. Here's where I would define the box or pallet or container that that's in and associate any weight with that. I could then add items to that particular packaging configuration, and the system will maintain that configuration for me. So I'm going to see that in this case I had item PT 10,000 that was stored in a box of size 2, which was part of shipment 214. So that packing function allows me that ability to pull together my items into some type of a packing configuration. And then I would go to shipping, and if we review that same shipment we just looked at, shipment 214, this is where I'm going to start associating some of my carrier or tracking information that would come in automatically based on my UPS or FedEx feeds, and if I wanted to track that, we could do that. If I wanted to see and add freight information, you're going to see that at the bottom of the screen, and I could start allocating that by order if I needed to up in my charges. So we see in this case I've got $35 freight, And then the blue buttons in the center show me what documentation I've printed for this particular shipment. In this case, it's printed a packing slip and a bill of lading. Any of these blue buttons can execute those documents as well. All right, so the shipment keeps all the information related to the not just the freight carrier information, but things like what pick list generated this shipment. There's my packing configuration for the shipment. All right, and all the details associated with the consignee, the consignor, and pulls it all together in a nice single screen. So if we go back to our process flow, so we've gone through the initiation of CRM activity from a lead to an opportunity. We've created our quote. We've converted the quote to the order. That's caused demand, which has been fed to our planning and scheduling system. We saw how we can then plan our purchase orders and manufacturing jobs to release them out of our planning system. We've completed the items into our warehouse, and now we've shipped it. So that kind of gives you a kind of a flyby of that process flow, and hopefully acquaint you with some of the, at least at a very high level, some of the functionality within the CloudSuite industrial solution. So with that, Wendy, I'll hand it back to you.
Great, thank you very much. We do have some questions coming in, and just as a reminder, if you have a question, you can enter it in the question box in your webinar toolbar, or you can click the white hand by your name and we will unmute you so you can ask your question directly. Okay, so first question, Dave. CloudSuite Industrial, can I install this on a server that I own?
Sure. Yeah, that, as I mentioned up front, it just because it's got that word cloud in it, it doesn't have to be deployed as a cloud solution. It can be deployed on premise with your own hardware. And in addition to that, if you want a hosted solution, it could be you could license the software and have an external party host that as well.
Okay, great. So it's available in the cloud, on premise, hosted, whatever works best for the client.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
Can I run traditional MRP?
Sure. Sure. Yeah. I mean, I talked about capable to promise, which is a finite type capacity situation where we're factoring in capacity. But if you want to do traditional MRP, that's fine as well. There's a few different modes. There's traditional MRP that we can process. There's finite advanced planning and scheduling, which is what we talked about here. And there's also infinite advanced planning and scheduling. Within infinite advanced planning and scheduling, you'd be doing more similar to the capable to promise we'd have an available to promise, but then you're making more manual decisions in terms of maybe having resources work overtime or adding resources versus the assumption that I have a finite set of resources that can work on the load that I've got in the shop right now.
So lots of options.
Okay. Yes.
All right, I think those are all the questions for today. So Dave, thank you very much, and thank you all for joining us today. That concludes our webinar.
All right, thank you, Wendy.